This is a brain disorder that affects the frontal and temporal lobes. It represents about 10% of most dementias, and it is specifically due to a tau protein that builds up in the blood, very similar to Alzheimer's, but we don't have a way of testing for frontotemporal dementia at the moment. One of the other differences in how this disease works is that it damages the brain cells as opposed to the brain tissue itself. So you get a shrinkage in the temporal lobe, but it's very localized. Whereas when you look at normal Alzheimer's disease, you see a global shrinkage. The occipital lobes are preserved in frontotemporal dementia, and what we tend to see is just the frontal and temporal lobes, hence the name. So again, one on the left, absolutely normal sulci, normal density of brain. But you look at the one on the right, you can see the back portion of the brain looks relatively normal, but up at the front, there is noticeable atrophy in the, certainly on the left portion of the picture that you see it versus the right. So again, it tends to localize to one part. So is it going to be vocal? So when we look at it, frontal lobes, behavior, executive function, and then if it's more of the temporal lobe, it's language and more of the semantic memory. So there are two subtypes. So in frontotemporal dementia, we have the aphasial variant, which is spoken, and then we have temporal lobe, which is, the frontal, which is behavior. Now, my dad had frontotemporal dementia. It was one of the reasons that I have spent so much time and been so passionate about dealing with this, and he developed the aphasia variant. So very, very early on, he started to have language problems. So, you know, he was a normal guy, he was a welder, wasn't a big drinker, you know, tried to stay healthy, and he lived up in Canada, and I would call him a couple of times a week, and it was, he just turned 61, and one day I was talking to him and he was slurring his words like he was drunk, and I'm there, have you been drinking, you know? And he said, no, I haven't been drinking. And then I spoke to him later, a couple of days later, and he was fine again. A couple of days later, slurring his words again. So I actually called my mum separately, and I said, hey, you know, is Dad drinking? And she said, no, you know, why would you say that? And I'm there, he's having some speech problems. So they were due to come down. We brought him down. I actually took him over to Dr. Pandey because we were working together at that time. Lo and behold, he has frontotemporal dementia. No memory problems, he was still working, still driving, everything was fine, but the speech was the first sort of key as to where it was. So it doesn't always present as memory, it doesn't always present as a behavior, you don't get lost.